I am joined by Robert Griffin III, James White, Field Yates Meanakimes.
All right, so first play we're going to look at, 2nd and 2, one of the Patriots' first offensive plays.
What's going on, everyone? Taylor Kyles here for CLNS Media, coming at you with another episode of Pat's Daily, brought to you by our good friends at PrizePicks and Gametime. And today, I am so honored to be joined by Duke Manyweather, offensive line scouting and development for OL Masterminds, offensive line masterminds. I'm really happy to have you on the show, sir. You've had 2 of your guys drafted to the Patriots, but 9 guys drafted total, 2 signed as undrafted free agents. Will Campbell, I asked him about you when he gave his first speech at Gillette Stadium, and he talked about how much success that you've had with everybody that you've worked with and said he wants to be part of that for his entire career. So really excited to have you on the show, Duke. Thank you for joining. How has this weekend been for you, first and foremost? What's it feel like to have this level of success? I know you're probably used to it by now, but what's it feel like this time around?
You never really get used to it, but really this weekend is just a culmination of all the hard work that those guys have put in Will's case since early December. And Will first came to me last off season when he had time from LSU. So really it's been a year in the making. And it's just really putting a plan into place and then creating action steps for that plan and then executing. What I always tell these guys is that this entire process from early December, January, whenever your process starts, all these are just stops along the way on the journey. It's never the final destination. So when we go from the combine to all-star games or the pro days, those are all just stops along the way. Even the draft is a stop along the way. It's not the final destination. So we always kind of plan and prepare with the final destination in mind, and that's to be the best offensive lineman and the best version of ourselves that we can be when we step into camp. And that's the first, I should say, extended stay, so to speak, and then winning a job and then being the pros we can be. So that's really is the ultimate goal. But this weekend always symbolizes just the culmination of that first phase of work. And for me, I'm just happy I could play a small part in some of these guys realizing their dreams, So as you said, we had 9 guys drafted this year, 2 signed as undrafted free agents. We had a Division III player in Thomas Perry end up with the Ravens. Many people thought he was going to end up with the Patriots. So all in all, it was a really great and successful draft cycle, I would say.
Yep, and you mentioned this is just one step of the journey, but this journey for Will Campbell and Jared Wilson takes them to Foxborough. They're going to be learning from Mike Vrabel and Doug Marrone. I'm curious, how familiar are you with both of those guys? And as a leader and mentor yourself, how do you think of them in terms of like being teachers and obviously the leaders of men?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's start with the mentality and the mindset and just the overall moxie that Mike Vrabel is known for and has. So I think it was important for Mike to come out and put his stamp on this team and on this draft. And you do that very early with a guy that is just as fiery, just as enough salt and moxie that Will Campbell has. He's been around Foxborough now for a couple of days. I'm sure all of you that have come in contact with him see that same passion, fire, and just he's a culture changer. And I truly do believe that, from his natural leadership skills to him being able to hold people accountable, not expecting anything out of anybody that he wouldn't do. So I think that's really an important quality of a leader. And I think that it was important to bring that true grit type player to New England, because that's going to be a marquee for Mike Vrabel moving forward in this organization. Really familiar with Doug Marrone. He coached down at the Saints. I've coached a ton of Doug's players, so we've collaborated for quite some time. Back when he was a coach at Jacksonville, I had their entire O-line at one point. Saints had their entire O-line, and then we kept in contact when he was at University of Alabama. I ended up with a couple of their guys there. So very familiar with Doug. Doug's an old school coach, teacher, allows guys to be who they are, but will help to bring guys along the way, and will coach those guys hard. So I think even within that regard of when we're talking about personalities and the grit and the moxie, Doug Marrone is a guy that fits with the mentality that Mike Vrabel is going to bring as well.
And when it comes to the different types of techniques, because of course there may be one thing that you believe in philosophically, maybe something else for the coaching staff. It's obviously helpful that you've had that history with Doug, but how does that work from a training perspective and then from a team perspective to make sure you marry those two types of philosophies?
Well, really, the big thing is collaboration. I think that's the key. And if we flip to the mastermind side and the mastermind principle and the true essence of Napoleon Hill, it talks about the importance of collaboration and to be in perfect harmony and sync with a group or two individuals with a common goal. And so I take that same philosophy into when I'm consulting and really collaborating with teams. It's not about my way. It's also not about Doug Marrone's way. And a lot of people may take that out of context. But what way it is about is what way can this player continue to have success down in, down out, and replicate that. And so I think really it's a happy medium. It's like, okay, what does a coach want you to do? All right. Where are you having issues with? All right. Well, maybe let me give you something else to think about, or let me coach it to you how I see it. And so sometimes it's a matter of just cueing guys differently or getting them to think about it differently. That way, what I always tell guys is sometimes we need to show coaches what we can do while still giving them what they want. And I think the only way you do that is if you win reps. So really, again, I think it's more about collaboration versus my way or another team's way. I want to essentially take what they need to do and what the team wants them to do and make it as efficient and replicable as possible. That way they can do it down in and down out.
Yes, sir. Well, let's dive into these guys, right? Will Campbell and Jared Wilson. Before we get into them as players, I like for people to have some idea of who these guys are as human beings. You've touched on Will, how he and Mike Vrabel are going to be very good personality fits, and they really do scream that if you just watch them in videos or anything like that. But can you tell us a little bit more about Will, anything you haven't touched on yet, and then also more about Jared Wilson, just so fans understand the kinds of people they're getting in both of these guys?
Yeah, well, I think we touched on Will, and really there's not much more to say. It's what you see is what you get. Completely authentic, completely genuine, tireless worker. I'm an early morning guy. Like I get into the building by 4 a.m. every morning, and there was two guys this year that were constantly either showing up when I showed up or a little bit after 4:15 the latest, and that was Will Campbell and Thomas Perry, our Division III kid from Middlebury. Those two guys, to me, were the guys that really pushed the entire program. Will from a mindset and from a just personality and who he was in terms of a leader, and then Thomas Perry from a work ethic standpoint. But I thought that Will did a great job even in our group, even though we had an LSU guy there as well that played with it. But I think Will did a great job leading that group and setting the tone for that group. And I expect nothing less in New England. I think that it'll be the same. I think it'll be a transition. It's never going to be an easy and a smooth transition going from the college game to the pro, but I think it'll be a transition in which you see some of those characteristics be able to get him through his rookie season and then start to develop into that true leader that they want to lead that room eventually. In terms of Jared Wilson was a guy that came to us from Georgia, was a one-year starter, but had a very good year at center. Very dynamic and explosive athlete, as people saw in his testing. And our biggest thing with Jared was, he played a little banged up this year, had an ankle and a foot. And so we wanted to get him as healthy as possible. We knew that if we got Jared healthy, he would do some special things in Indianapolis, and that's kind of what you saw. And I'm going to tell you this. I think the Patriots got one of the steals of the draft, because talking to teams throughout the draft, many people had tagged. They said, hey, take the one-year starter away. If you look at this draft and you look at, if you had a gun to your head and you had to select a Pro Bowl center and you had one pick, it would be Jared Wilson. So I know there were some teams that said that like they wouldn't be surprised if he went in the first round. And some teams, most teams thought that potentially second round. He lasted to third, and I think that the Patriots got to steal. And again, what we have out of Jared is a guy that if you've ever seen Eric McCoy play in New Orleans, you've got a guy that has a very similar play style to Eric McCoy, where he's athletic but's got some power to him. And I think that Jared has just a little more natural athleticism than Eric, and Eric was a phenomenal athlete. So I'm excited to see kind of where Jared fits in. I think he'll compete almost right away at center and guard. I know they signed Garrett Bradbury, but I think that Jared just overall has got more power than Garrett Bradbury, that's where Garrett has struggled with in his throughout his career. So it'll be an interesting competition to watch, whether it's that competition at center or is a competition for one of the guard spots for sure.
Patriots Daily is powered by Gametime, the best place to get tickets to the NBA playoffs, which is exactly what I did last week to get into Celtics versus Magic at TD Garden, and the Gametime app made that experience that much easier. They make getting tickets faster, easier, even for these hard-to-get playoff seats, but the prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer you get to tip-off. So it's the best way to score last-minute deals to get to your favorite team's games. Those last-minute deals can save you up to 60% off when you buy last-minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and so much more. The app also has zone deals, which saves you even more when choosing a section and lets Gametime choose the seats for you. They have all-in pricing, a feature that shows you exactly what you're going to have to pay without any surprise fees at checkout. And they also have panoramic seat views right in the app, so you can see exactly what you're going to see when you get to the game. So make sure to take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
And diving into Jared a little bit deeper, I didn't know that he had played guard. I thought he was a center-only prospect. So I know for me, I felt kind of ignorant because I figured a center-only, maybe that would hurt. But, man, if you got the position flexibility, that helps a ton. And even more than that, he mentioned speaking to us in our presser that, all the time that he spent not starting, he was going up against all these monsters on Georgia's defensive line. Yeah. They're getting drafted every year. So from an on-field perspective, how did that help him being able to practice and go up against those guys on a consistent basis and prepare him for starting duty?
Well, I think what you saw was that his first year as a full-time starter, you saw his play speed and then just his cadence and rhythm really be able to show up immediately. He didn't look like a first-time starter. And I think that is a testament to the competition at Georgia. He replaced a 4 or 5 year starter in Cedric Van Pran Granger, who's with Buffalo now. I coached Cedric last year during this process. It was evident that, Jared may have been a better athlete than Cedric, but there was something in terms of leadership qualities that Ced did have that you want to keep him on the field, But I think Jared was a great sixth man for them to fill in sometime when Cedric went down, and then also the year before when both guards were in and out of the lineup. So I think that experience that Jared had at all three interior positions, and then also in practice going up against some of the best D linemen. I mean, we've seen what Georgia's done. I mean, that had him amped and ready to go as a starter. And I think that will also carry into NFL.
And we always talk about pass pro with offensive linemen. Obviously, that's very important, but the run blocking is a huge part of that. And just looking at Jared and his athleticism, I feel like he's going to open Josh McDaniels' run game right up and the screen game as well. So can you talk about maybe those elements of his game as well and the things that make him good in pass pro? I want to touch on that as well. But as a run blocker, why is he such kind of a force multiplier?
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing that you'll see with Jared, and we're just talking about inline blocks, he's able to reach shades and turn them and get them pressed up the field, which helps to kind of stretch the front side of the defense. He's able to cut off on the backside as well. He's got the power that he can work with the guard to get movement on combo blocks, ace and double teams. And then he's got the athletic ability and the tracking to climb up to a second level and execute on linebackers. But then also, if you go and look at the Tennessee game, he's up picking on corners. You look at the South Carolina game, he's up picking on safeties because he's that darn athletic. So I think you got a guy that not only has the movement skills and the moxie to get things done, but then also has the power to knock you on your butt too. And I think that's important. I think that, like, at the end of the day, the athleticism is great, but you have to move a man from point A to point B against his will when you're playing on the offensive line, and Jared's got that power to do that.
Those massive hands. He's got like 11 inches. I know there was like a toss against Tennessee. He latches onto a guy, and it looked like a video game graphic where it was just like a magnet, tosses him to the ground, and that's the kind of thing I'd be very happy to see.
I think that was the corner and the boundary on the left side to the left side.
Yeah. Yes, sir. And now, so, all right, the physical, he checks the boxes, right? But from a mental perspective, because the center position is so cerebral, he's a one-year starter. But again, we've talked about it. He's got experience, and he's in the SEC, right? So many of these pressure schemes are trickling up to the league. So can you talk about him from the mental perspective and why he's someone who should be pro-ready because of his experience in college?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think Jared also spoke about this kind of in his first media hit, how much time we spent in the classroom and watching film and on the board. And I think that's an underrated aspect of what we do down here is, I'm a coach. Like, I've coached at the college level. And so that's not a foreign thing to me. So we get on the board and we do X's and O's at least 2 times a week, along with film study, along with just teaching them the universal language and the verbiage that they're going to hear in the NFL. So when we got Jared into the film room and on the board, he was a natural. Like, he knew how to move the pieces, so to speak, when we're talking about the chessboard, that is defenses and pressure reads. But one of the things that I always try to do, where I think my value comes in, is give them something else to think about. So that may have been the look that you saw, but what if they do this? What is your next move? And so just getting them to think outside of what's on the tape and try to get into the head of what some of these defensive coordinators may be trying to do to them. And then what is your next move? And then understanding how the entire global scheme of the offense works and how that fits in with how the defense is trying to attack them. And Jared did a great job of understanding that, knowing that, and again, moving the pieces to where they need to be. So I don't expect there to be any real hiccups with him making that transition and learning the playbook and understanding. But at the same time, there's always going to be new and evolving things when it comes to these different defensive coordinators in the league, and their whole objective, especially if there's a rookie center or rookie quarterback, is to try to trick them. So I think Jared's got more than enough time to start to prepare for that. And again, he's got Garrett Bradbury there. So whether it's center or at guard, there's going to be competition.
During free agency, I watched your video behind the scenes with Trey Smith. I was hoping that the Patriots might sign him. Get an idea of how things went with you behind the scenes.
Oh, yeah.
The attention to detail. I love this game. I love what you guys do, and I love to learn. It was very humbling. I'll say that. I was like, this is stuff I would never even think about if I'm just watching by myself, which is why I love having guys like you here. But I kind of segue into this for which Jared Wilson. We talked about all the good stuff, but everyone's got stuff to improve on. So I'm curious, what's the biggest area of focus for him as he moves on to the NFL? Because we've got all the pros and everything. I'm just curious, what's maybe one kind of area of refinement?
One thing that we really worked on with Jared is starting to use his offhand more. I think just being able to protect his chest and be able to, because he's got great length for a center. I think he's close to 34 inches. So I think just being able to use that offhand and then keeping the base underneath him where he can use that power and use that athleticism. What I always tell guys is, we don't want to get that base too wide, and we don't want to get too far overextended, because we want to always be in position to be able to recover. It's not a crime to get beat initially. It's a crime to stay beat. So we want to always make sure that our base and posture are applicable for us to be able to at least have a chance to recover. Because that's what this NFL game is all about, is you're not just going to dominate every rep, but can your feet get you out of bad positions, and can your body position maintain so you can hold up and strain at the point of attack? So really it's just we focused on the offhand, and then we also focused on just maintaining posture and base when you start to get defenders running down your chest or trying to pry you open.
Well, we're talking technique. I think that's a pretty good segue to one Mr. Will Campbell. All right. We think that Jared Wilson's probably going to have a good chance to start as a rookie, but Will Campbell is pretty much written in already, that left tackle role. Going to have to earn it, but all the tools that he brings, he is the best candidate for that spot. So For anybody who's not really privy to the tape or anything, what is it that made Will such a dominant force in the SEC and someone who was able to start from day one and then continue to build and grow throughout his time in Louisiana?
Well, just consistency. I think who he is as a person is very consistent, and that spills into his game. So first and foremost, he's got a really explosive pass set where he's got more range than people think. His recovery is really good. He's got really good ability to recover because he always is able to maintain posture and maintain his relationship between him and the rusher. The thing that I think really sets Will apart in pass protection is how good his hands are. And I know there was a lot of talk about arm length, and arm length can be a gift and a curse. I've seen a lot of guys with very long arms rely too much on length, and they don't really use their hands in an effective manner. So one thing about Will is Will's feet are very efficient, so it allows his hands to be even more effective. You don't see him miss too much with his hands, whether it's independent hands or a two-hand strike or a double under or kind of clamping the shoulder pad. So I think that crafty hand usage is something that is going to translate to the game almost immediately. And then also just his mindset in the run game. He gets off the ball and he's ready to absolutely punish people. And I think that is important. I think run blocking in the NFL is, or really at any level, is a mindset. And that's really wanting to come off and be able to close space and step on toes on defenders. And so that's really what you're getting with Will Campbell. Those are all great critical factors and traits. But I think the thing that ties it all together is what we started with, and that's he's a consistent player. And he's a consistent person. And I think, though, that is a key trait for having somebody come in and kind of be the anchor of that offensive line. Consistency.
Yes, sir. And I think the discourse around Will kind of got a little out of hand. I never thought there was any question he could play tackle. For me, I know, and I like for even Brandon Thorne, I know, friend of both of us, for him, it was just, okay, how high is the ceiling, right? Because the arm length is one thing, but then Will is also atypically narrow with the wingspan for the tackle position. So I'm just curious. Again, he's going to get a chance to compete at left tackle. I don't think the Patriots have any intention of moving him. But just for anybody who's curious about what if he were to bump inside, do you think his upside would be higher if he moved to guard? Or is it unfair to even go that way because he's never actually played guard?
I think it's unfair to even put that expectation on it. I mean, I think moving positions, period, is never a give me. And sometimes people are like, oh, well, if he bumps inside, what if he bumps inside and struggles, then what, So I think that it's unfair to say that or to project automatically that his upside is much higher. Why? Because a number says so. Sometimes it boils down to, can you play football? And that's what it's always about. Can you play football and can you do it consistently? And sometimes there are outliers and people that defy any metric and they just go out and play. And I think that Will has kind of showed that, especially in the SEC.
Can you touch more on his run blocking? Because it's always, the pass pro. But as a run blocker, one in the gap scheme, like you see him like taking the line and then setting it basically in the end zone when he wants to. There was this one play I know where I was like, this is a Vrabel guy, where he drives one guy back. There's a safety, just barely gets out of the way. The play's over. And Will's
on
like,
the goal line.
Yeah, and he's like, you know what? I'm not done. And then throws that guy to the ground. So just that mentality, like, people really don't understand what that can do for an offense as well. So maybe talk about him as a run blocker too.
Well, to the point, it's the mentality. It is the mentality. But one thing that he does really well is he's able to create leverage with his hands really well in the run game. And then he just overwhelms people because he's got that explosiveness where he can close the space between his hips and the defender's hips. And that's where it really gets the displacement. What I always tell these guys is our primary objective in the run game is to do two things. And that's to close space and displace. We want to close space between our hips and the defender's hips. We call it sometimes stepping on toes. We want to close space. And then if we can do that, then we can displace them. So it doesn't matter what the scheme is, whether it's a gap scheme, zone scheme, split scheme, multiple, doesn't matter. If we can close space on that defender and we can displace him, the running back's got a chance. And again, it's that mentality. We live kind of by a creed. There's no greater joy than pushing a man from point A to point B against their will. And that's really the mindset that you see Will Campbell playing with. Whether we're talking about the front side of a reach, he's really good with his backside hand lifting and being able to pry the guy open. If we're talking about on the backside cutoffs, really good getting across the guy's face and then playing with his inside hand to the V of the neck to be able to get him turned. Really great job stepping same foot, same shoulder when him and the guards has deuce blocks or any type of combo block to really get the guy displaced or to get him collapsed inside. And then he's got really good awareness to once he's working off that combo block to be able to see and feel the linebacker, then be able to square up and fit on the linebacker. So just a guy that can do a lot of things. I think early on in his career, there was a lot more gap scheme stuff that you saw him excelling in. But then the last 2 years, there's been a lot more outside zone that showed that he can roll and stretch the front side and press the front side and then be able to cut off the backside on the outside zone type game. So I'm a firm believer that the guy that can check the box and the gap scheme and the zone scheme is the offensive lineman that I want, because you don't have to worry about them just being a scheme fit. They're fit in whatever you put them in.
I'm so excited the Pats come on, really see him start resetting that line. So, of course, all the strength, but similar to Jared, everyone's got weaknesses and things they're working on. What is that for Will right now?
One of the things that we kind of identified early on was just he would take great pass sets, but then when he would get to the spot, he would kind of float off the spot a little bit, and then he would anchor a little deeper than he needed to. So one of the things that we tried to make sure that we really implemented was him staying square to the spot longer, and then being able to being in position to widen the rush really with his inside hand to get that rusher off the path. That way he's not backing up into the quarterback floating. So a lot of people saw that like, oh, he doesn't handle power well, where reality is not really the power, it's just the timing of transitioning that kick to anchor and then widening the guy off the rush path. And that's something that I still work on. There's guys that right now that have won all pros in the league that I still work on that with them in the off season. So that's really the biggest thing that we worked on.
So to tie a bow on all this, everyone's excited about Jared, everyone's excited about Will, but it's also fair to set realistic expectations, right? Because then as they improve, we can get excited at the milestone. So for year one, what should fans expect from Will Campbell and Jared Wilson?
I think the first and foremost thing that you can expect in year one, without putting any unfair projection or anything on them, is just them going out there to compete and give Foxborough everything that they have. I think that is the expectation. I think that them lining up and just really going out there and playing a physical brand of football, I think that's what needs to happen. I think that the Patriots the last couple of years have, quite frankly, this has been one of my least favorite offensive lines to watch. I never quite understood in terms of personnel-wise what they were trying to do with some of the guys in the room. It just didn't seem like it mixed. There wasn't a lot of talent there the last couple of years across the board. So I'm excited to see them taking a different approach to saying, no, we want to get guys in here with the mindset, the physical tools and attributes to come up and run the ball down your throat and to be able to pass, protect, and strain. And I think that as rookies, you'll see that from them.
Thank you so much again for your time, Coach. Before I let you out of here, please let the people know where they can find you and all of your great work.
Yeah, absolutely. You can pretty much find anything we do, olmasterminds.com. There's access to our social media on there. You can buy merchandise. If you're curious about more offensive line play, you can download and subscribe to our app that's available in the Apple, in the iPhone store or in the Google Play Store. I highly recommend that for everybody. Like if you're offensive line enthusiast, if you're a coach, if you're in media, if you're an aspiring scout, it doesn't matter. There's something for everybody on that app. Essentially, what I always say is pretty much everything that we do in our program is on that app, So I highly suggest people take advantage of it.
When I found out about the app, I genuinely couldn't believe that kind of content was just available for people to have. We live in the golden age of football. So once again, Duke, thank you so much for your time. And thank you all, as always, for watching. Now, take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. We will see you next time. Peace, y'all.